Hello, everyone. Hi there.
Hey, well, that wasn't that hard. Ha!
Uh, Finally. So I guess we were supposed to do a test check, but it looks like it's already 9. So if you're all good to go, then we could perhaps,
Yeah, yeah,
or do you
let's
need
do
a few
this.
minutes to settle in?
No, no, no set.
I have to give your introduction, but you can be here online while I do that. Or you can join in again if you want to.
No, no, it's all good. I'll just wait and listen to my introduction.
Yes, please do. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us this week. My guest tonight is one of the region's premier storyteller, helping companies with their brand storytelling, building pitch decks, and with expertise in strategy and experience design for digital businesses. I hope I got that right. He has also been quoted
Yeah.
as a digital expert in many international publications, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, CNN, and many others. The gentleman is also a mentor for National Incubation Center Karachi for startup and has had written on digital disruptions in publications like Forbes, Profit, Branding in Asia, and many others. The list goes on, but since he's already here, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Habibullah Khan. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey.
I know it's not easy to spare out a few minutes, but thank you so much. It's an honor and privilege to have you here.
No, no, I love being here. It's just that, I'm really not used to Instagram. So that was a learning curve, and thank you for putting me through it.
All right. So, without wasting any time, I think, miss out one point that you're the founder for Penumbra Digital. That's the company
Hmm.
that you founded, and you are one of the main forces behind it, leading it, doing really awesome work from all that I've heard. All right. So, we could perhaps start off with the first question that was on top of my list ever since you agreed to do this,
Hmm.
which was, about art and design. And I have had this, I have been really curious, wanting to know opinions from other people who are into the design business, that art is open to interpretation, right? And design is solution oriented. So do you have to be an artist to be a designer, especially in terms of content? When you're designing content, do you have to be an artist? Does it matter?
Wow, wow, you're really leading with that? Okay, so not an not an not an easy question.
I have been curious, you see, because I am in the designing
No,
business and
no, no, sure,
it was
sure.
not my niche. I got to learn it.
Well, I have a very clear point of view on this. So thank you for asking such an interesting question. So art, I think art is not meant to be sensible, and
Yeah,
it's open to interpretation, but it's also the artist's interpretation of the world, and
yeah,
I think great art is often offensive and subversive. Um, if art in any way, and just don't mean the visual arts, I mean any
yeah,
sort of art. It could be a piece of literature. If
yeah,
art offends you, you know,
yeah,
if it offends your personal worldview, then it's
yeah,
offensive, right? And and I
absolutely.
think that's an important part that art plays, because it in a way takes you out of your comfort zone. If it uh, if it offends your societal view, then that art is subversive, and to me that is an
Yeah,
even more important art. Because to me, coming from technology, subversion and innovation are often related.
absolutely.
So my we actually have two lines of businesses, and one of those is design thinking, where we basically solve problems. Now, some of those
Yeah,
problems we've been asked to solve are very practical, like how do I beat Daraz in e-commerce using just experience design? Okay, so
all right.
this was an actual
Interesting.
problem we solved. That was an actual problem we
Okay.
solved. Then some are tougher. Some are like how do we increase family planning methods after abortion? So these are the
Yeah,
sort of problems we're asked to solve, right? So
right.
I have found out that in order to have successful solutions, the method isn't as important as the ability to take out raw data where you talk to people and put it
Yeah,
into context. So
Yeah.
to asking which questions you ask in the first place and how do you interpret them, that requires a breadth of understanding, not specialization. And art is, to me, is part of that breadth. If 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 I understand art, or if I am inspired by art, or if I
Uh-huh.
use art as a filter, it will
Yeah.
allow me to look at my situation with context and ask the right questions and define the problem in the right manner and solve it in the right manner. So, I've noticed people who don't have this exposure to humanity, and people who do not have this exposure to a sort of like a deep generalism across, say, culture
Yeah.
and business
Yeah.
and even degrees of self-actualization, I find they
Yeah.
do not become good experience designers because they're too
Mm-hmm.
specialist, and then they end up focusing on the method. So,
Yeah.
I can just tell you from my narrow filter and my
Yeah.
myopic worldview, if you are open to art, if you are moved by it, if you are use it for subversion, or if you understand what it does, you are a much better designer in my definition, which is an
Absolutely.
experienced designer who solves problems. You are much better. And similarly for you, if if you have access to art and this well of interpretation that it carries with it, because it's also multi-layered, right? So it might,
Absolutely. It gives you
if
depth.
it
It
yeah,
adds to
well,
your the depth in perception, right?
I think sure, but I think the beauty of it is that if you are somebody without depth, art should still affect you at your level. And if you're somebody who has a lot of depth, then that will affect you at your own level,
100%.
right? And so
Well
beautiful
said.
art does
Well said.
that.
I agree with that.
And you will notice that a lot of religious scriptures are also very deeply symbolic. Symbolism is a form of art, right?
Yeah.
And the reason they're deeply symbolic is that allows them to survive centuries, because
Mm.
they know that they have to be relevant to somebody 2000 years from now.
Yeah.
So what they use is they use the art of symbolism. And so I guess that was a bit of a roundabout answer, but I think you if you have the ability to appreciate art and to open yourself to it without letting it offend you, then you will
Mm-hmm.
definitely be a better designer, because it's not about the method as much as it is about how you perceive the world and put it into context.
I guess that was quite an elaborate and the kind of answer that I was also seeking, because at times we need that kind of validation, because when you are doing product design, or when you are creating something that has to do, it has to have an artistic touch to it. Obviously, practicality aside, it has to have that appeal that the client or the end user is attracted to it in the first instance, and it holds their grasp, and it holds their attention long enough for them to be
I think it's
attracted.
even more important now, Sakena, because 66% of Pakistan's population is between the age of 15 to 33.
Yeah.
So your customers, your audience are going to be younger, right?
So
And
it, it's
they're
a very
naturally
changing world,
skeptical. They
Yeah.
want to be moved.
You, you
Yeah, yeah, I
you
agree.
just mentioned this number. So, in today's digital world, it's a digital world after all, the way we are moving forward. So, in this digital world, is perception more important or reality? Because what I feel is
Uh,
like
mm.
each day we are, it's more about how you perceive things. It's more about the image that you put out rather than the actual reality.
So if the question was, is perception greater than reality? I might agree with you. But if the question is perception more important than reality? Then definitely the answer is no. There is nothing more important than reality, because without reality, without that anchor, you yourself, lose meaning, and without meaning, what truly is life? Then you're just on a treadmill. There is no doubt that by the time I think there's a saying. I think it's attributed to a lot of people, including Mark Twain, that by the
Mm.
time truth has finished putting its boots on, the lie is already halfway around the world.
Yeah.
So in this fifth generation information warfare, in this era of fake news, I guess on the political side, definitely fake news to overwhelm any truth is like a common de facto, in fact, even a de facto way of just simply being, or the de facto communication strategy, right? In history, such propaganda which is just overwhelming, and of the over an overwhelming an obfuscation of truth by just constant lies is usually an early step into fascism, and definitely one of its foundational building blocks. And you will see that wherever societies tend towards authoritarianism, you will see this. But that does not mean that it's so. Is it there? Is it used in on the political sphere side? Will it continue to be present and used as a lever? Absolutely. But is it more important than reality? No, absolutely not. Reality is the most important, because reality is directly linked to actual solutions. We build solutions for a living. We cannot do it with perception. We can only do it with reality. In fact, half the problem is defining the problem well so that you can find the solution well. And so these are two sides of reality, right? पहले आपने problem definition करनी होती है, फिर आपको solution करनी होती है. So we deal with this, with finding reality every day. That's what we do for a living. So for me, it's a very personal question, right? And I will tell you, nothing is more important than reality, because अगर आपने actual solution ढूंढना है, if you want to actually change the world in a small way, in a medium way, or in a big way, then reality is very important. I hope I was able to answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that at the level that you were, trying to take it. So another important aspect that I feel, when we're talking about perceptions and realities, authenticity, it's a trio, I think. And, it matters. I mean, to me personally, as a designer, it matters. And it's my one grievance here living in Pakistan, because there are no design patents, and there's a huge, I could just ramble on about my list of grievances, but, authenticity matters. So when you are in the design business and when you are creating products, or originality or authenticity, is it an old-fashioned concept? Because at times I feel like I see around and,
No.
Everybody is copying everybody else, and there's so much of algorithm. So what about the people who want to do it the authentic way?
Okay, so let's be very clear about one thing. There's a difference between originality and authenticity. Okay, so absolutely, and even originality is a bit, one could philosophically argue nothing is original, because everything is inspired by something else. But I think har cheez mein darjat hote hain, and there are degrees to that too. But when it comes to authenticity itself, I don't think it's old-fashioned. I actually think it has now come into fashion. And I will explain to you why. We research Gen Z all the time, because Gen Z are the one who have the most influence on net spend. So just simply, practically, मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ. And when I study them, they are a highly skeptical generation. And it's not as easy to fool them as it was easy to fool millennials, and before them, Gen X or boomers or whatever you want to call them. And so for them, authenticity is a rallying cry. For them, authenticity is a core belief, and they are skeptical, they're smart, they're savvy, they will judge you on your authenticity. I tell every brand that if you're not an authentic brand, you are dead, because these guys will find you out. They're not stupid. And there is, you can see the example of this, like brands that are innovative, that are riding high, that have young customers. The moment they realize you're not authentic, you're not walking the talk, they drop you. And if you see, Under Armour is a great example, a fantastic brand, fantastic innovation, apparel as technology. And they dramatically lost, the stock price went down, etc., because the CEO was caught doing some stuff. But the background behind that was that the brand wasn't authentic. And the moment they realized it wasn't authentic, it suffered. And I think that brand equity loss is permanent, right? So it's very, very hard to regain that. So authenticity is now key to a business model. And authenticity is, which is why all business models now that are successful and have the greatest ROI are impact driven. And if you
Yeah.
define that a bit loosely, there's this whole movement in the corporate world about ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Um, and and the fact of the matter is that ESG is actually a way of saying impact and of companies being authentic, of being responsible to their employees, to their customers, to the communities they operate in. That is authenticity. And all, purely speaking, from a practical point of view, all investment is going into such business models. So authenticity is common sense now. It is smart. It results in good investments, and it results in loyal customers and repeat customers. So I would say authenticity is in fashion like nobody's business, like never
And I
before.
hope I just add to that. I hope we see more of it in our local scenario as well, because
You know,
we need to, because
we're a
talking
young
about,
nation,
yeah,
and I will we're a young nation, and the young are the ones who are looking for authenticity the most. And I feel that when brands will rise because of authenticity and fall because of a lack of it, then
yeah,
it will become well established as practice already. And I say this often, like on my Twitter feed, I have this one thread about how where I wrote the obituary of Kareem Pakistan, and
yes,
and and I don't know if you remember that, but the reason for that
yeah,
was that they did not walk the talk, right? They
I
built a
did not.
tribe of being a certain way, and then their behavior after that wasn't what was the behavior expected from an authentic brand. And you see now
Absolutely.
their reputation, their usage, their reputation with young customers, it's in tatters. So
Yeah.
authenticity is already starting to matter, I feel.
Talking about these young generation that you believe are going to make an impact, हमारी local industry, why is it lagging behind? I'm again talking about local industry because मेरा interaction ज़्यादातर other women-led businesses and home-based brands and whatnot इन लोगों से ज़्यादा होता है. So मुझे ये feel होता है कि there's a lot of lagging in aesthetics, and there's हमारे schools, they don't teach art the way it should be taught. वो drawing book और एक art period होता है जिसमें teacher आके आपको board पे बनाता है. मतलब I don't know how much it has changed. It's been a long time since I was at school, but they don't develop aesthetics, at a younger level here in Pakistan. For example, I mean, forgive me for saying that, but here in this country, you sell everything from a biscuit cookie to a detergent with a song and a dancing chorus of people. That's how the aesthetics have been developed, So why is that? Why can't we appreciate the art?
Okay, so I guess I have some opinions on this. Um,
Then
First
can
of
they
all,
be
okay,
voiced live, or
no, no,
will we need
listen.
to censor them?
I'm not sure how much the local industry is lagging behind. I think what we see of the local industry is a result of us being a closed economy that is not used to questioning. If you see art comes from friction, art comes from anger, art comes from subversion, art comes from a contrarian point of view.
Yeah.
And as a society, these are not things we are comfortable with. A hierarchical society, we're a you respect your elders type of a society, we're a don't question
Yeah.
authority type of society. So wo hai. But listen, look, but at the same time, don't judge our aesthetics by what you see, because what you see is an economic reality. When you see the advertisements, those advertisements are there because you don't need to advertise, and don't need to have good advertising or marketing to win in this market. So that's why your advertising and your marketing becomes average. So that it does not mean that we do not have aesthetics and arts and style. We have those, but the classic commercial interpretation of it is not there, because you don't need that. Listen, if you're an FMCG, you don't need to advertise. You just need distribution. If you have
You know,
distribution, you will sell. If
sorry,
you
just
are
I was interrupting you and adding to that. I agree with what you're saying, but the recently Dubai Expo 2020 Pakistan Pavilion made news everywhere, and people were so surprised that something out of Pakistan was so
exactly,
pleasingly aesthetically done, which was quite hurtful, to be honest. we are a country with amazingly rich culture and arts, and it was a shocker for most that something so
Yeah.
beautiful could come out of a country. So that's the
Again,
kind of
this actually goes down to your reality versus perception. To me, the reality is that we are fine. The perception is, of course, caused by commercial, interpretations
absolutely.
of and advertisements and all that, and those are average or below average simply because that whole ecosystem is incestuous and rotten.
Yeah.
And it comes down to us not needing advertising or marketing to win. In the West, you need them to win, so they're good. Over
Yeah.
here, you need arrangements with government, you need distribution muscle, you need price fixing, you need all. So you need different conditions. You have different conditions of victory that don't involve quality of advertising and marketing, which is why you don't get it. So don't let that judge on aesthetics. I mean, see where we have friction. Wherever you have friction, wherever you have pressure, you will have resilience. You will have human character, and from there
Absolutely.
you will find great art. Um, and we can you can look at that amazing rapper in Liari, right?
I was just
And
thinking
and
about that.
you can look
I
at
was
those
just thinking about
look at those two sisters who are
yeah,
doing such amazing work in Gilgit Baltistan
yeah,
with football, right?
yeah.
And I don't think there's a more artistic the most artistic photograph I have seen this year anywhere in the world is a photograph of those Gilgit Baltistani football girls huddling in a strategy session. And there's one girl, she has her face swollen because she probably got kicked while playing football.
Yeah.
But and so the intensity, the how natural, the way it's structured, it's a thing of beauty. So I think
Okay.
our job is to find and create to find that talent which I believe exists, create a natural pipeline for it, and bring it to the right people, and create a stage for it to be appreciated. I do believe it's there. I am astonished with our quality. You should see some of our digital artists. Like, I keep track with them. I've been following some since they were like 15, 16, and now they're like in their 20s. Incredible work. And animation is also art, and you should see some of the stuff these people are doing. So wherever there is appreciation, and wherever they can get paid for it, you will see that the talent is enormous. So I think it's a matter of what should come to the forefront, as opposed to why are we lagging behind. We're lagging behind in finding it and projecting it, but the raw talent is definitely there, and I think it's a great opportunity, actually.
That was very, very well said, because you're right that this is what needs to be highlighted. And I hope that, people watching this talk do, I mean, especially outside the country, do realize that there's a lot of hidden immense talent here. We keep competing with India's talent pool. We don't realize how much of it we have it in our own country. आपने फुटबॉल का जिक्र खुद ही कर दिया. That was also on my list of questions. So there's a lot of football on your Twitter feed. So do you actually
Oh,
play
yes.
football, or have you actually
No,
played football, or is it just
uh,
a spectator sport for you?
no. I watch football. We all have people who influence our lives, and my best friend was a massive football fanatic, and he influenced my life severely. And one of those influences was definitely football. And
Okay.
yeah, it stuck.
All right.
So 30 years of passionately following football. And,
All right.
like, we all have to have passions, right? And without
Absolutely.
passions, we're not really complete.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad I
Absolutely.
have a couple, and one of those is definitely football. And you know what? It's a great sport, because you pick up one football, and that's it. You can have a game anywhere, right? On a street, in the mountains of Baltistan, on a flat ground. That's all you need. You just need one football, right?
Did you
And
ever
so,
imagine that, a region like Gilgit-Baltistan would have a women's champion league in football coming out of Pakistan? I think that was one of the best news of the year this year. No one would
yeah, I
have
mean,
imagined that
it's a beautiful story. It's a fantastic story, right? And again, we talked about how somebody can bring our talent to the forefront. So actually, a couple of sponsors like the Mahmood Group,
Yeah,
shout out to them, and a couple of other people, they helped bring this out. So if you just identify the right interventions and invest in them, you will see, like, your world explode with the amount of talent we have. We are one of
absolutely.
the youngest nations on earth, and that, to me, if you redefine it, is we are one of the most curious, expressive, and capable of art and expression populations anywhere in the world, right? So I think there's so much that can be done if we just, kind of stir the pot smartly.
Yeah,
The rest of the thing will happen by itself.
I couldn't agree more to that. Let's hope that, the coming year brings better opportunities for us all, especially women. I don't want to make it, uh, gender biased or anything, but unfortunately, it's a harsh reality. Women get lesser chances generally in society, especially in a country like ours. There are less opportunities for us to, and more hurdles and more roadblocks. That's how it's, balanced right now. But if hypothetically speaking, there's one thing that you would change in today's world, perhaps for your daughter, what would that be?
Okay, so it's a very tough question. But before we get to that, you talked about, I guess, the role of women and the status of women in this society. Yesterday, I gave a lecture at the Islamic Chamber of Commerce. Not a lecture; it was a small talk on impact at the Islamic
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce. And after that talk, this girl came up to me, and she was 16, and she said, she asked my view, and I was very honest. I was like, this society hates its women,
It
and we
does.
are the fifth most misogynist society on the planet. And I said, I'm not going to lie to you, right? Those are the facts. And I said, every girl I talk to, and it's my job to research them, right? So I just now, I used to research them myself, but now I realize even that might induce some biases. So now what I've done is I've trained Gen Z to interview Gen Z, right? So now the interviews are done by Gen Z on Gen Z, and it's fascinating. I see the scripts, I see the transcripts. It's amazing. So I said to her that I'm not going to lie to you, and all the girls we have talked to, you'd be surprised. They all say the same thing. We want to leave and never come back because this is no place for us. And you can understand where they're all coming from. And she was saying the same. She said that we were having a practical discussion. She's like, I want to go abroad. I said, look, it doesn't make sense. When I hire somebody, I look at their last degree. So if you do your master's from outside and your bachelor from here, that's a better ROI on your money. And she said, actually, what I'm going to do is that, I'm going to say that I'm going to go there and come back, but I'm basically going to go and never come back.
Never.
So for me, it's not a practical thing. I just need to get out. I'm like, okay, well, can't argue with that. So I mean, let's not underplay this problem. It is a massive problem, and it is something that I started dramatically thinking differently about, obviously, when I did have a daughter, right? So there are many interventions that can be done to fix it. But if I had to do one thing, I believe a rising tide lifts all ships, and I believe that how we look at women is an inequality, right? It's an unequal relationship, and it's an institutionalized unequal relationship. But this might be contrarian or counterintuitive, but I feel if you get rid of the biggest injustice in the world, it will help a lot of these injustices. So if you had to ask me what are the top 5 interventions to help women, I would definitely have opinions on those. But if I could only do one thing, I would actually end fiscal inequality, and I would end poverty, because if you alleviate poverty, right, you are basically giving agency back to people, and part of that agency is self-improvement and education, and it's just this holistic thing that helps everything, including women's rights. I would definitely do that, but it is an unsatisfactory answer, because the fact of the matter is that the women's status in this country is so far behind that it is now an emergency, and it is actually hurting us. Again, I like having a practical halo to all my discussions. Look, Bangladesh labor inclusion in their workforce is very high, right?
Yeah.
Our mobile phone ownership gap is the highest in the world, is one of the highest in the world, and I think it might be the highest in the world. So between that and the education gap and the digital gap, these are so entrenched, it's hurting us economically. So Bangladesh is not perfect from anywhere, but when you compare them to us, they look like superstars. Their
They
per
do.
capita GDP, their labor inclusion, the women's inclusion in the labor force, the level of education their women have, the amount of smartphones they own, they're far ahead of us. And so it's translating into economic numbers.
It
We're a
does.
poorer, we're actually a poorer nation because of how we are treating our women. And we can no longer afford to do that from a pure economic perspective, let alone from a human rights perspective, right? So,
Absolutely.
वो तो अपनी जगह 100% है, and I would lead with that. I would definitely lead with that. But I'm just saying it's actually starting to hurt us as a nation now, our treatment of women. And but if you flip it, your low-hanging fruit of immediate improvement across all areas in your life is to empower women in this country. Fastest way to do it.
I wish, we hear so much of that, and I do wish that, it's a task that would require action from all the stratas of society. So I know on a personal capacity, a lot of us, including you, me, and our network, people in our network are doing efforts for that, in our own ways, But until and unless there's some action done on a large scale, it doesn't seem very likely, unfortunately.
You're absolutely right. Like they can. Some interventions are to stave off emergencies. I think if you focus on giving them agency,
Yeah.
you will be fine. So how do they get agency, right? So by how can they become if they have the cha to improve themselves, can they? What do you need for that? You need a smartphone, right? And you need education. So bridge that digital gap, give them education, and I think the rest they will figure out themselves. For a UN project, we were studying behavior related to women, and it was surprising that, and this was in Sindh. So to the right of Sindh, to the right of the Indus, to the right of the
Mm-hmm.
Indus River, the
Yeah.
patriarchy is much stronger, right? It's
Okay.
much stronger. The social mores are more entrenched. The subjugation of women is deeper, more institutionalized. To the left of the Indus, it's easier. They're better. They have greater relationships with their husband. A lot of the decisions are taken jointly. It's not perfect from anywhere, but it's better than from the right side of the Indus. And it's weird how Indus is like the boundary between these.
Dividing, yeah.
And the difference, when you look at the factors, the difference is education. The districts on the left side of the Indus are more educated, are more developed. So that's a clear thing that was a clear validation for me that if you put in the factors for agency, then I believe in removing barriers and getting out of the way. That is my take on innovation, and that is my take on empowerment. And so any minority, and women are
Yeah.
the largest minority in our country,
Yeah.
if you create the environment for change and get out of the way, that is the
Yeah.
best way to get things done. Because when we actually try to get things done, we have a terrible history of execution and getting things done. I mean, as a nation, we really don't.
Yeah.
That's not exactly a strong suit.
Make a
We
mess
kind of
out of things.
stumble from
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of stumble from one government to another, from one generation to another, from one what
Self-sustainable
is the hook we
projects are
hang on
left.
ideologically. Maybe
Yeah.
I agree with you. So I know it was a bit winded, but I hope I was able to answer some bits of that.
No, you truly did. And you wouldn't believe it that we have crossed the required time that I asked you. The conversation had just been flowing, so
Oh
I
my
didn't
God.
realize that. No, I don't mind. I have all the time in the world, but I'm sure that the weekend and you, it
No,
was
no, no.
really
So do I.
kind of
So do
you.
I. It is.
Before we go, I just had two more questions, short ones.
No, no. Please ask.
One was about viral content. आजकल बड़ा ये trend I was seeing on social media. Viral content being put to good use to social work. Kids selling macaroni or child selling samosa. You make him go viral, make a short clip. In one of the cases, I saw that he ended up in school because it helped.
Mm-hmm.
Get so much attention that he was able to make a decent living, and then he was able to come back to school. So can we kind of, I don't know how, somehow regulate more of this kind of why can't we do good without the content being going viral? I mean, why do we have to see something, being appreciated by millions before someone takes action? Why is that? It's like,
Well,
no, there's a human behavior.
what does technology do? So Kena, what does digital do? Digital makes everything faster. Okay, so that means if you have digital waste, if you have something negative, all of that becomes faster.
Absolutely.
Your life becomes faster. Um, you are hooked onto behaviors. So I mean, even when you go and talk to like a 13-year-old girl or a 15-year-old boy, and I have both, right? They don't have time. But at the same time, that's why virality triggers reaction is because life puts you on a treadmill very early, and we can have a long discussion on how how our free will is such an illusion, and how we're actually farmed by the 1% or whatever, and consumerism is
Yeah.
the actual antichrist, So we could have that
Yeah.
discussion, and I think it would be a very fun discussion. But maybe we should save that for our for
On
that
another
physical
time. Yeah.
meetup that we're planning. But so whenever something interrupts you like this, we are still human, right? We still have human sensibilities, and we are compassion. We are a compassionate, generous nation, right? And
We
this is
are.
evident from how much we give to charity. And
It,
so with the right story, we will always respond, because the DNA is there, the humanism is there. And remember, there's this native Indian proverb. I like to quote it because that's literally what we do for a living. That those who tell stories, they rule the world, and there's a reason for that. There is nothing more powerful than a well-told story. And what is virality but a story, a vignette of a story?
I think that's very, very well said because, in effect, I think even selling a product is all about good visual storytelling. If the client connects with the story that you're selling to them, um, the product sells very well. So,
Yeah,
absolutely, storytelling
yeah,
is there.
yeah. But usually we have a fight with that, right? Because what the client wants might not be the right thing, and what the ultimate consumer wants, right?
I
So
was
I mean,
waiting for
ye
you
to
to
chalta
say
hai.
that throughout the discussion, but you finally said that. Yeah.
No, it's true, and that's why. But this is where we have the power, right? Whenever we um, are want to compel somebody or make an argument, we always go back with qualitative insights by talking to the ultimate end customer. It's very hard for somebody to overrule you when you say, "Yeah, but literally, this is what people are saying."
Yeah.
And so so ये तो होता है, but that's just how it is.
So before we wrap up, any word of advice? I think there's a mixed group of men and women listening out there, so I just wouldn't be
Okay.
specific to women, but generally anything that you want to,
No, I am.
sum up our talk
You
today.
make me feel really old if you're going to say give advice. I'm still a learner myself, but I will say this much, which it's an advice I give to students, but it's equally applicable to everybody at all stages of life. And this is an advice we give for digital transformation. And that advice is fail fast and fail often. And
Mm.
and and that's probably the best advice I can give, because in the end it's all about learning, and you will not learn if you don't fail fast and fail often. And I feel the worst thing in life is when you do not take action when action needed to be taken. This can be true about relationships, this can be true about business decisions, and this can be
Absolutely.
true about large moral dilemmas. And it's okay to make a mistake, but learn from it and move on. It's also, if you're stuck, let's say you're stuck in a bad marriage, right, or in an abusive marriage, and you keep hoping, or you keep that is the this will apply to that as much as it will apply to you having made a wrong decision, which is burning cash, and you still wanted to succeed.
Mm.
It's the same filter, and the
Absolutely.
answer in both of those is, stop throwing good money after bad money. Stop throwing good feelings after bad feelings. So get rid of the toxicity. Get rid of the bad business model. Do it fast. And if it
Absolutely.
doesn't work again, try again. So I see people spending their lives stuck in paradigms or situations, and I see businesses doing the exact same thing. So if there's any advice I can give, it is fail fast, fail often. Learn to hack your own biases, And if you have enough data fed into your framework, you will first build a framework, and then you'll be able to take the right decisions. I think people are very smart, and they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for. Where they err is when they stop learning, when they're like, "Acha, this is my lot." No, you were given free will exactly because there's nothing more, no greater anathema than "this is my lot" or "this is how it is." No, it isn't. So, free will, fail fast, fail often, all of these are related. So, exercise them.
That's an excellent piece of advice. I think
Are you
person
going to
कहते
take
हैं दो
it?
चार I do because दो चार दफा फेल होने के बाद आपका वो fear of failure भी खत्म हो जाता है. एक दफा दो दफा
बिल्कुल
तीन
सही.
दफा once you overcome that ना फिर मसला आसान हो जाता है. कोई मसला
हाँ,
नहीं,
very
कोई
well
बात
said.
नहीं, right? So thank you so much for your time today. It was great learning, not just for the folks out there, but especially for me. I got to learn so much, and thank you for being our guest. It was indeed
No,
an
it was
honor and a
awesome.
privilege to have you here.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you so much. Take care, Habib. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
With that, bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back again with another episode of Enchanté Luminaries. I would love some feedback and comments and questions if you have any for our upcoming sessions or the sessions that we just had. Please let me know and stay safe and take care. Thank you.